Welcome to the Catalyst for Growth podcast, a place where we talk about everything under the sun regarding the journey of the professional salesperson. Welcome the host of the C4G Sales Success podcast, John Kailunas II. Take it away, big guy.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You got John Kailunas II here, and our special guest today at the C4G podcast for sales enrichment is the one and only Don Carlson. Don, welcome.
It's an honor. This is going to be awesome. Thanks for having me.
Well, how long have we worked together, you and I?
I'm going to get ahead of you here.
Don't even say it's dog years, and it's like 3-1.
No, over 20 years now.
20 years?
20 years. That's right.
And this is where usually Don says I show my age and all that, but you're going to be nice.
I was going to say it's been a great few years.
Don, tell me a little bit, tell the audience a little bit about your background and what do you do at Regal?
Well, I joined working with you over 20 years ago, like we just said. And at first it was helping the organization grow. I spent a lot of time on the insurance side of the business, working with insurance agents, helping them implement those strategies, but find new agents to come to the firm because of all the resources that we had at that time. And then that grew into a role to actually recruit advisors, share our value proposition, share our story, and then find those right fit advisors that were looking for independence, but also looking for a home that they could grow. And what we find is, and we'll probably get into this maybe at some point, is a lot of those firms have outgrown advisors and the industry has changed. And so it's been a lot of fun sharing our story and helping advisors grow their practice, both on the business side, but also helping them personally.
Yeah, this is January, the January of 25 will be our 25th year in operation at Regal. It's been amazing taking 3 steps forward, 1 step back, and all the crazy stuff that's happened with all the advisors we brought and some of the people we've helped, through education like this podcast, as well as our training programs, how we've changed their life and helped their families, and they in turn are helping their clients.
So. And that's what still gets us up every morning, right? It's to build those relationships, and a lot of those relationships that started over 20 years ago.
I don't know what gets you up in the morning. I thought it was Heather kicking your ass, kicking you out of the house.
Yeah, no, that's that's doesn't happen.
You're not going to retire before she does, buddy.
Right.
And she's a AP chemistry teacher, right, in Michigan?
That's right.
Yeah.
And she didn't start in teaching, but got into it as we had kids, and it's just been awesome. And she's chemistry, a lot smarter than I am, as you know.
Well, as I told you before the podcast, that I was in a cigar lounge in downtown Grand Rapids and ran into a young man that knew her as a teacher and then knew her as a mom because of your kids. So a great reputation your family has. So.
She still has a lot of, when you talk about relationships, kids that are in college are still reaching out, asking about, hey, how does this organic chem class work? And those have gone on beyond just friendships.
I'm glad they're asking her and not you.
No, they know better.
So what? One of the things you're a very humble man, and most people don't know about you is you had a pretty illustrious college career. I know you always say it's your teammates, but you're very well respected. I met your old coach, and he said he was, and I still can't believe this, but he said you were the smartest basketball player he ever coached, and Coach Smith has coached hundreds, probably thousands of people.
He
so
has, and I saw him, as you know, just a couple months ago. He's inducted into the UP Hall of Fame.
Well, tell people that are listening, they don't know what the UP is. They think it's part of Wisconsin. So do your little UP thing and let everybody know what it is.
No, they call it God's country, as you know. And so I'm a proud UPer. And for those of you that don't know anything about the UP, it's that area north of the Mackinac Bridge. Yes, it's connected to Wisconsin. I actually grew up 1 mile from the Wisconsin border. And if you don't know anything about the area, it's full of, a lot of small towns, modest means, but it's rich with the purpose of community, which is evidence of what we're doing right now, John. It's building a community of like-minded people. So, I grew up in the UP.
Well, give everybody the 2 famous Upers that you always talk about.
Well, Izzo and Mariucci,
yeah.
Of course, grew up in what they call the IMK area. So everyone knows Iron Mountain. I actually went to Kingsford. Now, what's unique in the UP, because of the scattered land, most schools are 20 miles apart from each other. But Iron Mountain Kingsford, those two schools are actually 1 mile apart. In Iron Mountain Kingsford, you've got Woodward Avenue that separates the two. And why they
not to be confused with Woodward Avenue in Detroit, Michigan,
no,
which has the Dream Cruise and is Highway 1.
Mm-hmm. No, Woodward Avenue is the division and is home of the Woodward Bar.
Oh, there you go.
Which is a proud stomping ground.
Which there's probably 5 people drinking early in the morning.
That's right. Yeah. No, they keep it open. And no, yep. So proud Uper, and end up going to Lake Superior State, which is in the UP. That's where I met Heather, my wife, and still folks are still there. Got a cabin up there. It's a great place to go.
We've raised 2 great kids. Both accomplished. Your daughter's coming off an injury. She's playing Division I at Western. Yep. And this will be her junior year, right?
Her junior year,
yeah.
That's correct.
So let's talk a little bit about athletes. I know you have a passion being an ex-athlete. I know most of the people you surround yourself with have an athletic background. It's run, obviously, in your family through both your children. So let's talk a little bit about what athletes do and how it can work to an advisor's favor. Because I don't think we have a lot of ex-jocks in our profession. Mm-hmm. But I think they transfer the competitive nature of who they are, but they don't transfer a lot of the principles that were distilled at young ages with athletes. And so let's talk about some of those. I know you and I outlined some of those.
Yeah. I think when you go through athletics, and it doesn't, regardless of the sport, there's something that over time it's just built into you that just carries over to whatever it is that you do, whether you're in our industry, financial advisor, or you're a teacher. There's something that drives you to, one, excel as an individual, but also to help those that are around you, your colleagues, to lift them up. And so I just think that's why.
Well, it's exactly why we're doing this today.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Regal started with literally nothing, and we've got $2+ billion of our RIA business. We've got, I don't even know how much insurance business. We don't really keep track of the annuity production over the time we do every year, but we don't, if there aren't any residuals on it, we don't count it as AUA, and we got another $1 billion of AUA in the broker dealer. So, and it's all middle America. It's it's all hand-to-hand combat. I'm proud of that. There's not too many firms our size that have gotten to our size by doing what they do best, and that's helping their neighbors.
Yeah, that's right.
So, one of the things my son has done some podcasts of the championship series that he wrote. And my son, you watched him grow up and you've helped him grow up. And I could always tell how my son was going to play by his preparation, right? He had a routine that he did, and he learned that at IMG. And after IMG, I could see, he went down to the certain line on the field. He said his prayers. He did this. He stretched a certain, isometrics a certain way. And I could tell if he got out of joint, if he wasn't just one thing, he was rushed or something. It took him a while to get into the game. So let's talk about developing a pregame for advisors going into appointment. That's pretty important, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And we've been talking a little hoops because of my background. If you look at the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan, and I'm not going to get into debates. He's the best.
You know what? I just heard it. I just heard this thing, and it tables all debates. There was a speaker that said, "How many times have you heard someone getting stuck up for their Kobe's or LeBron shoes?" Mm-hmm. It's always people are getting stuck up and held up for their Jordans.
That's right.
And he goes, rest the case. That's the greatest. No one wants to steal the second greatest. So.
Well, I remember, we talked about the UP. I remember my first pair of Air Jordans.
Yeah, let's go down this rabbit hole. I know this is not part of the podcast, but this is cool. The charity you started and why you did it, because I read I've watched what you've done, but I read the story, and I think I've known you for 18 years before I knew that story. And it's a great story.
Yeah. So there was this place called the IMK Community Center. It's a place we played 1,000 pickup games. And we're sitting there getting ready for enough boys to show up to play. And one of these kids walks in with these red and black shoebox. And it was just strange at the time for someone to walk in with the shoebox, because most kids, you just put them on your feet and you walk to the community center. So we're watching him sit down.
These are Jordan 1s?
These are the very first Jordans.
So you're old.
Yeah. Yeah, I am old. And when I think about that, but it's like it happened yesterday. And he pulls out these red shoes, and they're shoes we've never seen before. So we all huddle around him, and we say, "What are those?" And he says, "These are Air Jordans." And one of my buddies quickly asks the question, "How much were they?" And he shouts out the price, and we all gasp for air.
Yeah.
I'm looking down at my $20 New Balance that I bought at Shop Code the year before. But I go home later that day and I asked my mom, I said, "Hey, can I have these Air Jordans?" Guess what she asked me? "How much are they?" I told her price. She goes, the shoes you got are just fine. So fast forward a few years, I'm sitting on the couch and there's this Air Jordan commercial I hadn't seen before with Mars Blackman.
Oh, Mars Blackman. It's
got to be the shoes.
Yeah.
And he keeps saying it over and over as Michael Jordan's just dunking over them. So I go to my mom, but I work on my sales pitch this time. And I say, "Mom, I've got a birthday coming up in November. I've got Christmas in December. I'd really like these new Air Jordan shoes. They just came out. And this can be my birthday present and my Christmas present combined." Well, she didn't say yes, but she didn't say no. So a few days later, I wake up on a Saturday morning. She says, "Hey, we're going to get you your Air Jordans." And I was just pumped up. We get ready. And for most people, a drive to the Foot Locker was 10, 15 minutes. For us, it was over 100 miles to Green Bay, Wisconsin. So we take the pilgrimage. I walk into my first Foot Locker ever, and I walk out with my very first pair of Air Jordans, the Air Jordan 3s, which I still think are the best. So that stuck with me about the confidence it gave me, how I felt, and how I was so excited that next morning to go to the IMK Community Center to put them on my feet and wear them for the first time. So what we do with the charity, I appreciate you asking, is we work with 4th to 8th grade boys and girls that not just want the best shoes, but actually need shoes. And we started what's called Shoe Dash now. So we work with local schools, their phy ed teachers, their counselors, teachers that say, "We've got a boy and girl that's showing up with holes in their shoes." A week through gym class, they say this kid's feet are hurting and feet are 2 sizes.
The stories, my mom was a public school teacher. Yeah. The story's much more prevalent than you would think in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's some great data out that says when a boy and a girl gets a brand new pair of shoes, their self-esteem goes up, their activity level goes up. And this is a big one. And we'll probably talk about this today about athletes. Their confidence level goes up over 90% of the time. So, like you said, we went down a rabbit hole, but quick story about
it's a great rabbit hole. Yeah. And I would have picked you with your age that you would have probably been wearing those leather Converse that Bird and Magic had.
If you would like to be a guest on the C4G podcast, please contact us at info@catalystforgrowth.org or 813-454-0557. Primetime players only. Bring your A game or don't contact us.
They weren't the leather ones. They were kind of the upgraded ones. But they were.
Was that a little bit before your time, or
a little bit before?
Yeah. So
yeah. But anyway, so we talked about pre-shot routine. So Michael Jordan, we're talking hoops, always had the same free throw pre-shot routine. He'd dribble the ball X amount of times. He'd do the spin, up and in. I was watching a podcast. I'm trying to work on the golf game, and they show Scotty Scheffler on the range. And before he hits a shot, he spends a tremendous amount of time, one, on his grip. His coach actually had an iron that was built that the grip is actually molded. So it's the same grip every time. And then he focuses on the face of his club and how it's going to come through impact. And he does this before a shot. And I think for anybody, regardless of what you do, especially in our business, to have something that is a pre-shot routine creates consistency. It's wash, rinse, repeat. And it's something that you do over and over, and it becomes a habit. And if you have a bad habit, which means you don't have any type of pre-shot routine for our business, you're just going to fail more times than not. So to have a pre-shot routine is critical.
Yeah, I think we've been trying to teach advisors to do that. And one is using a biography, talking about the process when a client comes in the office, that they've got their process up. maybe on a TV, and then the first couple slides are always the same. So you get in a rhythm. A lot of advisors are still doing it the ad hoc way, where they take a yellow legal pad out and write notes. But that doesn't help build confidence. There's always those awkward moments if you don't have that pre-shot ritual, that pre-game just function to get your head in the right space, but also to create muscle memory so you become more professional and more efficient.
Yeah, muscle memory, and also to create momentum. When you see a puck go in early on, you see a shot go in early on in a game, it creates confidence, creates momentum, and it can take you through a lot of success in business.
The second one I want to talk about that I think is important for advisors when they're presenting is practice mindfulness and sort of a meditation. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, that they're practicing mindfulness and meditation to get in the right headspace. And then the next one after that is visualization. They also, to me, they go together.
Yeah, I think they do.
How would you relate that from athletics to advisors?
Yeah. Well, you go back 30 years ago, and athletes didn't have a lot of what I call this knowledge. A lot of people now, they'll go in and there's performance coaches. We didn't have a coach. You went and played 3-on-3 and you did all that. And I think there's a lot of benefits of just doing that. But the experience that your son went through at IMG, where they really drill down and talk about the mind. And, I think, was it Arnold Palmer said that the most important length on a golf course is the 6 inches between your ears, something like that.
Yeah, there's a quote like that.
And there's a power behind that. And I think meditation plays an important role because it helps you see it. And if you see it, then you believe it, and then you go do it.
Yeah, I've told you about this. My son was playing at IMG, and they came out flat, and it was 5-0 at the end of the first half. And IMG, they never lost, really. I mean, I think that year they were rated 3 in the country. And I was waiting for the coach. He was a loud guy, a New Yorker. I thought he was going to rip into these boys, and he didn't even talk to him. The mind coach, the mind coach,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Took him aside and said, "Boys, we're more prepared." Boom, goes through the whole thing, and he sat there and he says, "I want you to visualize the scoreboard going up." And Don, it was crazy because we got all the other fans, because we're at their home. They're all chirping that we're, rich kids, you can't play, you're bums, overrated. We're hearing it all. And it was 5-1, 5-2, 5-3, 5. It ended up being 14-5. They put up 14 straight points in the second half, and it looked like a knife going through butter, a team that was completely dominated. And it was all in the headspace. It was visualizing the scoreboard, going through it, and they just took total control of it. I think advisors can do that. I don't think a lot of advisors take control of appointments. They sort of wait they're reactive. And you've seen me in client appointments that I literally say, "This is what we're going to do, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. We're talking about our process. We're going to go through 1, 2, your accounts, boom, if anything new happened, and I go through my process. And then I sit there and I kibitz with them at the end, right? Mm-hmm. And we get all the relationship stuff going more towards the end. But they know what to expect when they come in the office. They know when they meet me what they're going to expect. I know what I'm going to deliver to them, and it just makes the interaction so much smoother and more professional.
That's right. Yeah, and you said this dovetails in the next one, and visualize success. And we have two friends that talk about this a lot. David Christie.
Yeah, David is going to be doing podcasts for us, so yeah. We're going to actually tape some in Vegas.
Yeah. So I love what David says. He says, "What you focus on expands." And then another friend of ours, Kevin Burwald, who you'll hear plenty.
Kevin's been talking a whole bunch on the podcast.
Yeah. So and he talks about the red car theory. And think about it: if you go buy a red Corvette, you're focused on it. You buy one. Next thing you know, you see red Corvettes driving all over the place. And I know Kevin shares that a lot and applies to our business. That truly, what you focus on does expand not only in your business but in life.
So your process should deliver goals, right? And you should write those down as an advisor. So when you were playing college basketball, it was to win, probably a certain rivalry game. Then it was to win the league, and then it was to win the tournament, and then try to get right. So you have these team goals. I don't think advisors share their goals with their staff enough. I don't think advisors hold themselves accountable to their goals. When I was producing at a high level, I literally had a laminated sheet in my shower of what I wanted to do. I think a lot of times, and I do this now, and I'm guilty of this sin, is I write a goal down, and then I put it in my moleskin book, and I'm all committed to it, and then I don't look at it for a month or two, right? But I think if we set a process in our goals, we should look at them constantly. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, absolutely. It's a dream, and then when you write it down, it becomes a goal. And anytime that you write something down, if you're competitive, if you're trying to change the lives not only of your family but others, you'll hit those marks. And I know we're going to talk a little bit at the end feedback, but I think it's crucial to have accountability partners. Surround yourself with people that will be an advocate for action. And if nothing else, be able to bounce ideas and be a sounding board. And I know we work with a number of advisors that over the years have thanked us just to be by their side and to lock arms with them. And maybe it's just a quarterly call or a monthly check-in. Hey, what are you working on? And, talk about John down in Indiana and other advisors that continue to work with us on an ongoing basis because they do like to have accountability partners. And independence is great. You're building a business for yourself. You're building your own enterprise value. But if you don't have other people around you that will challenge you, challenge the status quo, get you to act more forward thinking, and get you to look at your practice and get you to get out of the business every now and then so you can work on it.
Yeah, if you're just working in your four walls and you're not getting output from the outside, you're going to miss a lot.
Yeah.
You may hit some home runs, but you're going to miss an awful lot of what's going on in the marketplace. And getting the transfer of ideas is really important.
Yeah. Well, the best athletes in the world, they're the best at what they do. Scotty Scheffler won a gold medal. He's the best golfer right now, but he has a coach. He's had this coach for years.
Oh, and he's probably got a nutritionist, and he's probably got a trainer, and he's got, he's got a whole team. And I know he's got PR people and marketing people. I mean, it really takes, it takes a whole team, an enormous team, to get them where they want to go. So on the other side of the break, I want to talk about pressure as an advisor and maybe being an independent advisor. And what are your thoughts on that as comparison to an athlete? So you're listening to C4G podcast. You can go to our website, www.catalyst4growth, and that's the number 4, growth.org. And there's a whole bunch of materials on there to help you get better. There's ways to connect with Don at Regal, myself, Kevin Burwell, and a bunch of the other leaders we have on our team. There's also a bunch of resources that you can work on. And our goal here is not to teach you the Regal way. Our goal here is for you to get better. And it's better if it's 1 degree every single day that you're becoming the best possible you can be. So I know some people, when they say competition leaderboards, they get a little freaked out. Everybody wants to be on the top, but they don't want to acknowledge that. We have a lot of resources to help you, and you can go to that website, www.catalyst4growth.org. We'll catch you on the other side of the break. Welcome back. You're listening to the C4G podcast. We've got Don Carlson, equity partner at Regal. Don handles all the recruiting and the acquisitions coming into the firm. But we're talking today about his experience as an athlete and his children's experience and how those things, being an athlete, an ex-athlete, can be transitioned. The principles of greatness for great athletes can be transferred to advisors. So, advisors as athletes experience pressure for whatever challenge. Maybe it's production, maybe it's income, maybe it's a project they're working on. They're trying to convert everything to, they're trying to repaper their practice. There's a ton of different challenges we all face. Maybe it's regulatory, maybe it's compliance, right? But how do you look I mean, you're one of the coolest cucumbers around, right? You know, your feathers never get ruffled. I've tried to do it on golf courses, and I've had to really literally abuse you to get you so upset. You would I think we put a dead animal in your golf cart one time to get you off your game.
True story.
It's tough to get Carlson off his game. So you're a cool cucumber. How do you go about handling the pressure? What have you seen from the best advisors?
Well, you talked about my old coach, and one of the things that he really worked on with our team is never get too high on the highs and never get too low on the lows.
If I had $1 for every time you said that, I'd actually be wealthy.
Yeah. Well, when he said that, we didn't get into too much of our team. One of the reasons I played a lot early on was we didn't have a very good team. So he was trying to talk us off a ledge with regards to don't get too low on the lows. We didn't have any highs at that time. Now, I think maybe there was a little foreshadowing that he would hope we did, which we did. So never get too low on the lows, never get too high on the highs. And when I saw this bullet point, it reminded me as I watched the U.S. Open tennis this summer. And I don't know if you remember, if you watched any of it, one of the last signs is they walk the players through these hallways. That's what they do at the U.S. Open tennis. The very last sign that you see before they walk into Arthur Ashe Stadium, it says, "Pressure is a privilege." Billie Jean King used to say that a lot, I guess.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I didn't know that was actually there at the U.S. Open, but yeah. I've heard that.
Yeah. So think about that. You should embrace challenge. If you don't feel any pressure, then you really have to ask yourself, what am I doing? Because you're probably not setting very big goals. You're not getting out of your comfort zone. You're not taking a leap of faith or taking any risk. So you should embrace that pressure. And as Billie Jean King said, it's a privilege. So I think past experiences, we talk a lot about, we've learned more from our failures over time.
Oh, yeah. Let's, that goes into the next point. And all of these points will be written down. You'll be able to get them on the catalyst4growth.org website. There'll be a PDF next to the podcast where you'll be able to pull this stuff off. So if you're driving in your car, don't try to write this stuff down. We want you to focus on the road and the words. Don't worry about writing stuff down. It'll be all there for you in a downloadable PDF.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is...
Do you know what a PDF is?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we've got a great tech staff here. It helps me all the time.
Don is the only person I know that has worse tech skills than mine. And I've got a favorite thing I always say about Carlson. He has the tech skills of an Amish cabinet maker. So
yeah, we're not going to go down there because,
we had a tech competition here and I spanked them.
Yeah.
I spanked him. Not that we're competitive here, but yeah, I spanked him in our tech Olympics.
Yeah. Well, that's pressure you don't want, speaking of pressure. But to get back to pressure, we've all heard the saying that preparation doesn't make perfect. Proper preparation makes perfect.
Perfect practice, right?
Yeah, perfect practice. So I think if you come prepared to meetings, if you have a pre-shot routine, everything that we're talking about, pressure will still be there, but it'll help alleviate the pressure, and that pressure will then turn into confidence. So you'll then embrace pressure going forward.
That's the huge tipping point. That is, if anybody's going to take anything away from this podcast today, that is what I want people to know. The preparation will turn into confidence, will turn into success. Most advisors overthink themselves. And they think themselves into failure, or they're not thinking like the prospect and what the prospect needs. They're thinking what they want to tell them. So let's talk a little bit about resilience. We talk about, we've had some fails personally and professionally. Everyone does. Every human being has failures. Some people don't acknowledge it, especially if they're social media mavens, right? Nothing goes wrong on social media, right? When you're trying to promote your brand. But let's talk a little bit about resilience. And by reflecting on previous experience, especially failures, how you can get better.
C4G is a service-disabled, veteran-owned business. Thank you, Deborah. And all those that have served our great country. You can contact C4G at info@catalystforgrowth.org or call us at 813-454-0557.
Well, I think especially when you're young and you're coming into any business, when you look at the most successful businesses, the most successful individuals, in their minds, they see a straight line going from A to Z. And we all know in real life, that's a hot mess. That paper doesn't go to A
It's
to
a
Z.
squiggly.
It goes
It's going
to
all.
A to D back
It's
to
all
A,
over
and
the
it's all
place. Yeah,
over
there's
the
no
place.
direct line to success
Um,
that we found.
right.
Maybe there is, but
And through the course of that, if you can overcome pressure, embrace it, if you have all of these things, you actually build resilience. And resilience comes from taking shots in life. Resilience comes from failures. Resilience comes from learning a lot from others. That's why we embrace the power of community, that you might think you're a failure with whatever it is you do, but if you surround yourself with people who are positive and can lift you up, what you quickly understand is that they too have walked in your shoes and have probably failed at the same things.
I've really learned that from Kevin as we worked on this stuff to help advisors, consulting them and stuff, and the master classes, the studium classes, and everything. A lot of times, I think that we failed at Regal, right? Because we haven't hit our goals, and we picked enormous goals, but we failed. And I look back at it, we built a hell of a business. I mean, this business has paid for people's education. It's paid for the lifestyles. It's paid for a whole bunch of things. And it's paved a way for people to own part of the American dream. And yet, we might not hit our goals. And I get so down on that. And it's really from Kevin is like, you guys have built a great business. I mean, I don't know what, you stumbled here, you dropped the ball there, but I mean, overall, you're winning the game, right? Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. And I think that leads us to the number 7 point that I want to talk about with you is focusing on the present moment. I do a horrible job of that. I'm either rushing to something or I'm trying to figure out why it didn't work yesterday, and I don't live in the present. And my kids are always on like, Dad, I mean, just relax. And yesterday I was telling you about I'm got these, or this in our leadership meeting this morning, talking about I'm going on this hunt, going on that. I'm planning on that. I'm not thinking about the one I've got 2 weeks from now. I'm thinking the next ones I'm going to do the next 2-3 years. And there's good in that, right? I'm being prepared, but I'm also missing to smell the roses currently, right? And I'm missing those things. And I think you have a really good way about in your nature of being in the present, especially when you're working with a broker. I mean, they feel that they're the only person that's on your docket or on your agenda. I think it's one of your gifts that God gave you, that people feel that you are completely connected. Even though I know you've got 20 other advisors you're talking to, and you got a drip marketing campaign here and a nurturing campaign here, and you got all this stuff going around. Mm-hmm. But when people are with you, they feel that you're completely in the presence. How did you learn being presence from athletics?
Well, I think presence comes from being intentional. So going back to athletics, we talked about, getting out of your business to work on it. There were certain things, and regardless of where you are at athletically or in your entrepreneur journey, there's always things that you can get better at, and you have to be intentional about it. So if
you use the word intentional all the time, and I think it's a really powerful word, because I use the term engagement. We meet so many advisors that aren't engaged in their business. They're not engaged in their family. And it's really sort of the catalyst of why we're doing all this, right? Is for people to get a little bit better every single day, right? But you use that word all the time, and why? It's a great word because it shows purpose. It shows being present and focusing on something, and it shows activity and movement towards what you want. It's a really powerful word that I don't think people use it enough, and you do a great job of that.
Well, I think it starts when you start your day. Let's go there. If you're intentional about your day, of course, we talk to our staff about the Superior Six. It's something I learned from you, and I've kind of taken that to what are my big 3 things that I want to accomplish today. And if I can accomplish these 3 things, I've had a good day. Now, I might get those 3 things done by noon, and then I've got other things to go on to. But again, it allows me to be intentional, allows me to be present. And I think it's harder to be present these days
I would
than
agree.
ever before.
I think it's tough for young kids.
Oh, it's so tough because they've got their phones by them. It's this instant gratification. Notifications are going off on the phone.
And the whole world's at their fingertips.
Right. You know, I didn't bring my phone in here just because there's something about having a phone. You're just going to grab it, look at the screen. Okay, what have I missed? Is there any notifications? Have I missed a call? So it goes back to, yeah, maybe there's something that was built in for allow me to be more present maybe than others, but it's something you have to work at. And there's just little things in the morning that you can get set. First thing you should never do when you wake up, and maybe we'll get into this later because I know we're going to talk about rest and everything else, but not to look at your phone in the morning. If you look at your phone in the morning, first thing that you're going to do, you're going to be reactionary. And then maybe there's something negative that comes across that might derail your whole day.
No, I'm horrible at that. That's the first thing I do.
And that's
I use it as my alarm clock, and then it stays in my hand for 15 minutes. And, you know, I want to make sure that the emails I sent out in the evening have been sent, right? Yeah. And I want to make sure that a lot of times they've been responded to by like yourself and others. So I'm, you know, you get emails from me all the time. And if it's like 5 o'clock and I wake up in the morning, I'm probably emailing or texting by 5:05.
Yeah. And it's not to say that you can't touch your phone for
it's not healthy.
2 hours.
It's not good.
Maybe it's 10, 15 minutes and you just jot down what you want to accomplish. You meditate. You know, maybe you're doing journaling, whatever it is. And I learned that from a book called The Miracle Morning. So there's a lot of good reading out there, but to start there. And then I think to be an active listener and spend time when you're getting to know someone, especially for the first time, listening to what it is that they might have heartburn, what it is that they're looking to accomplish. And you might hear something that they have a challenge with, and you know exactly what it is that they need to do. So instead of just jumping and say, oh, I got just being a listener, have them finish, have that pause, and then you can come back to that. Hey, if I heard you correctly, here's what I see are maybe the 1, 2, or 3 challenges that we can use to help you build your business. And then there's reinforcement. Then they know that you're listening.
Yeah, one of the things you do, your skill set is you are a great listener, and you're also a good note taker. And you have a really unique gift of being able to observe people, take what they're telling you, and encapsulate it into like a 10 or 30 second just recap. If I understood you right, this and this and this, you've been able to pick those points out, and it does exactly what you say. It lets the person know that you care enough to listen, but that you also listened. And that starts building trust. And that is, if you can build trust with people, you can help move with them. If people don't trust you, they're not going to move with you. And you've seen me disengage a whole bunch of times with people because I just don't trust them. I don't believe what they're saying. And a lot of it's because they didn't listen to what we were doing or what we wanted to do. They had a preconceived idea and they want to jam the round peg in a square hole and, you know, all those other analogies. So one of the 8 things that I think athletes do that advisors need to do, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it here because we're going to have people on that are subject matter experts, but having a proper nutrition and hydration and rest. You know, I've come into the office, maybe had a couple too many bourbons in the evening, or I didn't sleep because I was on a plane, or I was on a red eye to come back. You know, we've all been there. Or you got a cold, a sinus infection, right? You're just under the weather. Those days are long and miserable. And if you take care of yourself, you have a better chance of alleviating those type of days. And I know we're going to have a trainer on in one of the podcasts, so you can just bounce around with all the library we're going to have on C4G. That's catalyst4growth.org, that website. And you go to Spotify and Apple, and you'll have all. It'll be titled by subject and by guests. So it's all very professional the way it's written up. But we'll have a nutritionist. I'll talk about all that in a trainer. So yeah, awesome. I'd like to table that one. And then the last one I want to talk to you about is reflecting on and assessing and reflecting your overall performance and how you get feedback in a positive way.
Well, I think in anything, whatever activity that you're doing, you need to measure. Because if you're not measuring your activity and the results of those activities, how do you know to put those activities into place for the next year? And if you go back to sports, if you're shooting the ball a certain way and you're doing it the wrong way, if you keep practicing the wrong way to shoot a basketball, and if you don't measure the results, you're going to continue to fail as a shooter. So in our business, you might be doing seminars, let's say, you're in front of an audience. If you're not measuring those results, how do you know if you should continue to do those to connect with people, to build your business? And you have that as a client acquisition strategy.
It's interesting and you were involved in this when we brought Bill Best in. We didn't have a lot of measuring metrics of the business, and now we can drill down. We spent a lot of money in our data and how we can look at things. But you look at a basketball player, and he can go look at a stat line, right, and see exactly what his free throw percentage is and all that. I mean, it's all done, right? As advisors, we don't really have that unless we build it ourselves. You have it if you work for a direct big company. But if you're an entrepreneur and you're starting your own, if it's an insurance agency or if it's a wealth management firm, whatever, you need to build those metrics in, because you don't know if you're on the wrong path or the right path unless you have some data, right? Because emotionally you get so attached to it, you think you're doing the right thing. And I looked at a program that we were involved in with an IMO, right, that they just grab people and try to teach them how to do seminars. It's a different type of person that does seminars. They need to be trained in public speaking. There's other things, and it can work incredibly well for the right person. But if you try to put somebody that doesn't know how to public speak and make them do a public seminar, it ends in a disaster. And that program was a disaster.
Yeah, square peg round hole.
Yeah. But we put the metrics in because otherwise they were just spending money because they liked the person or that they got a lot of leads for them. And you and I were like, whoa, time out. Jimmy might have had 20 leads, but he didn't close any. So there's a problem. There's a skill deficiency that we need to build and coach and train up.
That's right. And if you measure the results and if they're great, then you should double down. If you're missing,
then you keep writing checks.
And keep writing checks. And I think another thing that dovetails into this conversation, it's if you put an activity in place, whether let's say it's a seminar system, another client acquisition, you name it, you need to do it more than once.
Well, that's committing, right?
That's committing. Yeah. A lot of people say, "Oh, I want to."
It's like being a field goal kicker, and you practice for a day to be a field goal kicker,
right?
And then you go out there and you wonder why you failed.
Yeah.
Well, it's because you've only practiced one day. So whatever you do, you got to commit to it. You got to put the budget together. And we'll talk about that in other podcasts. But your marketing budget, you need to stick to it. You need to be consistent with it. And a lot of the principles that we talked about that athletes do, you need to put into your practice so you will be successful when you get those opportunities.
Yeah, well said.
So, well, Don, it's been great. Love having you as a partner. You're just a great guy, and you're fun to be around. And we've had a lot of laughs and a couple tears over the years. But I got one question for you. So you're a big hooper, and I might debate you on this, but who's on your Mount Rushmore of NBA players? So you got 4.
The Mount Rushmore.
And,
four players.
I know one's going to be MJ.
Michael Jordan. I'm going to go Bill Russell.
Oh, see, I didn't think you were going to go Bill Russell.
You got to at the championship.
I love Bill Russell.
Yeah.
I think, he's got 11 champions, right? Or championships. It's like, how do you not put him in? But I mean, a lot of people don't put him there. And I mean, he's the ultimate winner.
Yeah. And then this is one where you could date me. I'm going with Larry and Magic.
I knew you would go with Larry Bird.
They changed the NBA. That's when, before, a lot of people don't know this, before they really made NBA mainstream, the NBA finals were tape delay.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know. I was young enough that I remember watching with my uncle, and they were not live. And he was complaining about that. I didn't understand it at the time.
And then watching the Best of Enemies, the 30 for 30, and going through that, reliving all of that last year. That's my Mount Rushmore.
All right. If you took I would take probably Larry Bird out. If we took him out, who would you put in? I know you're a big Larry Bird fan. I'm not. Who would you? Magic obviously is as from the state of Michigan, Michigan State. I mean, how could you not be? Magic, a 6'9" point guard. I mean, that's crazy. It's set a whole different tone. In that one final, and then this, what is his first year? He played all 5 positions in the finals. I mean, that's pretty amazing. So, if you had to take Larry Bird out, who would you put in? Who would be your 5th?
Maybe the Big O, Oscar Robertson.
Yeah, I would probably lean Oscar Robinson, just because he averaged a triple double, right? I can't even.
Yeah, Kareem, you could put him up there. You know who I would have loved to see have a very healthy NBA career? Who is probably the best, maybe the best college player ever, Bill Walton.
I thought you were
R.I.P. Bill. Just passed away.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say Grant Hill. But when you said best college player, then he was good, but he wasn't the best at the time. But an all time. But his being a Pistons fan, his career was cut short, and it would have been great to see how special he was.
Yeah, and now he's leading our.
Well, Derrick Rose is another one. We can talk about this all day. So we gotta let these people get on with their lives, hopefully writing business and getting better. Again, Catalyst for Growth is created by advisors for advisors. Our goal is to help you get better every single day. You can access us on the website, www.catalyst4growth.org. You can give Don Carlson, what's your contact information, Don, if they want to talk to you directly at Regal?
Yeah, I'm going to give you my direct cell, 616-485-1131.
One more time.
616-485-1131.
And if any advisor is looking for a home, give Don a call and see if we're a cultural match for you. But we appreciate all your time. Check us out next week. We've got another episode. Go to the website. There's a whole bunch of free materials that you can start working and building your practice. We're excited to work with you. So give us a call, and we look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day.
Hey, thank you for your time today. We will have another content-packed session posted next week. Please check our website, catalystforgrowth.org, for our legal disclosures on the bottom of our homepage, if you're into that sort of thing.